We are now almost halfway through this championship season, so I thought this would be an interesting point to pause and see just how many points each championship club is currently projected to finish the season on, based on how many points per game they've averaged over their first 22 matches. Now obviously the points per game numbers will fluctuate for every championship club between now and the end of the season, but I think this gives us an interesting reading of, generally speaking, how many points it's going to take to avoid relegation, how many points it's going to take to secure a spot in the top 6 and the top 2 on top of that as well. Do drop a comment down below whether you'd be happy with this league position and this points tally come the end of the season. And as a quick point to note, I am recording this video before the Leicester against Birmingham match, so that result won't be taken into consideration with the data here. But other than that, let's jump in. Starting out rock bottom of the championship, of course it's Rotherham, who have only been able to average 0.59 points per game up until this point. When projected over an entire season, that would see Rotherham finishing the campaign with a mere 27 points to their name, which would be certain relegation. To put into context just how dramatic Rotherham's drop off this season has been to last time, they finished last season on 50 points, and that really looks like a far cry with the points they've currently got on the board and what they're projected to finish the season with if things continue like this. Now Sheffield Wednesday are an interesting one. They are 23rd in this table. Over the full season so far, they've averaged 0.73 points per game, which over a full season would be worth 33 points, but there has been an obvious upturn in form since the arrival of Danny Roll, and actually looking into the numbers purely off his tenure in charge so far, Sheffield Wednesday have averaged 1.18 points per game, which is significantly better than their overall tally, and that tells us they're probably going to finish with more than 33 points this season. It's a similar story for QPR, who are in 22nd place in this video. Over the full season so far, they've averaged 0.91 points per game, which would be worth 42 points over a full season, but there's been an obvious upturn in form under Cifuentes, so good in fact that QPR have been averaging 1.5 points per game under him, which is almost playoff form. So given the numbers right now, I'd expect QPR to finish the season with more than 42 points, which is a little bit of cause for concern for the teams immediately above them. One of those sides right now is Huddersfield Town. They are 21st in this end of season table. They've averaged 1 point per game so far. A lot of draws, especially since Darren Moore came in. That inability to win matches, especially against teams around them, really has been their Achilles heel. Now, what Huddersfield have been aided by so far this season is, for the vast majority of the season, the likes of Rotherham, Sheffield Wednesday and QPR being quite poor, and if that was to continue, 46 points would have probably been enough to keep them up. But with the upturn in form we've seen from Wednesday and QPR recently, I'm not convinced 46 points is going to be enough to keep them up, so we are going to have to see an upturn in form from them, in my opinion. And we can also say the same about Millwall as well, also averaging 1 point per game, a serious drop off from the sort of numbers that Millwall were averaging last season. They finished the last campaign with 68 points, and going off their current tally, they'd finished this one with 46, which is a serious drop off. I still feel as if, of the sides that are involved in this relegation battle right now, it's probably Millwall that are in the most false position, because there's proven quality in that squad that has been fighting for a place in the top 6 in years gone by, but a lot of change at that club recently with fresh faces coming in. That'll be cause for concern for Millwall right now. They definitely need to bump those numbers up. In 19th place, it's Stoke, who have had a marginally better record than Millwall and Huddersfield so far, but definitely in need of an upturn in form. They've averaged 1.05 points per game, which would be worth 48 points come the end of the campaign. Really disappointing the way the Alex Neil era ended at Stoke. There was real promise with that squad that was being completely rebuilt over the summer, but Neil really struggled to get a tune out of them, and as of recording, looks like it'll be Steven Schumacher walking in as their new manager, barring any late hiccups in that deal being agreed. So Stoke fans, I want to hear from you in the comments down below. Is that a step in the right direction? And just how tough of a job is this next manager walking into? With Swansea, there's been an obvious drop off in their play this season. They're currently projected to finish the campaign campaign with 52 points, which is significantly less than the 66 points they accumulated last season. We knew there was going to be quite a bit of change at Swansea coming into this season with the departure of Russell Martin, Michael Duff coming in, that managerial appointment not working out. Definitely improvements needed in the second half of the season. And suddenly Plymouth are a bit of an unknown quantity from now until the end of the season. Like I was saying before, as of recording, it is looking more than likely that Steven Schumacher will be going to Stoke, and barring any late hiccups in that deal, does leave Plymouth suddenly quite vulnerable. It would be very interesting to get some Plymouth fans' takes on this one down below. As things stand, they're averaging 1.18 points per game, which I think will definitely be enough to keep them up. That will see them finishing the campaign with 54 points. But it really has been their brilliant home form that has been keeping them above water this season. Away from home, not so great. And with a new manager potentially now coming in, does make for a bit of an unknown quantity, the boat being rocked there when it didn't perhaps need to be. In 16th place, we then got Birmingham. Now, I must say that I am recording this video before Birmingham have played Leicester on Monday night, so by the time you guys are watching this, these figures will have altered ever so slightly, depending on the result of that game. But so far this season, Blues have been averaging 1.24 points per game, which would be worth 57 points come the end of the season. A lot of promise with Birmingham over the summer. Great recruitment, new ownership model coming in. Everything seemed to be going fantastically well until they made the bold decision to get rid of Eustace and bring in Rooney. And since that point, it's all been a little bit inconsistent. In 15th place, we then got Coventry, who are currently projected to finish the season with 56 points. That is considerably less than they finished the last campaign on. They managed to accumulate 70 points last season and obviously made it all the way to the playoff final. Definitely a side I'd watch out for in the second half of the season. They started this campaign really quite slowly, bedding in a lot of players, but since they've switched the system, they've been a lot more solid and are on a good run of form right now. And certainly, I wouldn't rule out a Mark Robins side from a late run into the playoffs in the second half of the season. 14th place, we then got Bristol City. There has been quite a bit of change at Ashton Gate this season. Seemed like they had a safe pair of hands coming into this season with Warnock, but the board, for whatever reason, decided to make that switch. They're currently projected to finish the campaign with 61 points, which is 2 points better off than they finished with last time around. But as things stand, I think Bristol City are one of those championship sides really in limbo, where I'm not sure they have enough quality to kick on into a top 6 challenger, but equally have more than enough quality to be avoiding any relegation scraps. In 13th place, we've got Middlesbrough. They're currently projected to finish with 63 points, which is considerably lower than I think the vast majority of us would have predicted for Middlesbrough before a ball had been kicked. I do think they are one worth keeping your eye out for in the second half of the season, especially dependent on what Borough do in the January transfer market. They are one of those clubs that if the right player comes along, they may be willing to splash quite a bit of money in January. So definitely one you keep your eye out for. And as they showcased last season under Michael Carrick, when things click for them and they have a fully fit squad, more than capable of going on a good winning run. In 12th place, we then got Cardiff, also projected to finish the season with 63 points. Now, I think they're an interesting case study at the moment. Really good start to the season under Errol Bullock, and I think that every Cardiff fan would have snatched your hands off at the start of the season for 63 points. But there has been an obvious tail off in their results and performances of late, and I'm interested to see what business they'll go about doing in the January window now their embargo has been lifted. 11th place, we've got Blackburn, currently averaging 1.41 points per game, projected to finish the campaign with 65 points. That's 4 points worse off than they were last season, but generally speaking, still in and around the sort of points they were averaging throughout last season. Would take just a slight bump up from this to go ahead and match their form from last season. Rovers fans, what do you think you need to go about adding to your squad come the January transfer window, just to give you that extra 5-10%, which is maybe all that's needed to go ahead and properly push on into the top 6. Norwich City have been absolutely all over the place this season, but thanks to stringing together some results recently, they have kept their top 6 hopes alive. As things stand, they're projected to finish the season with 65 points, which won't be enough for a playoff spot this season, but if they do manage to push the needle ever so slightly in their favour, then who knows, they're not completely out of it just yet. And if they do manage to get some key performers back injury-free in the second half of the season and perhaps spend a little bit of money in January. Who knows? Watford under Valerien and Ismael, a side I've been quite impressed with actually. They've gradually grown into this season, absolutely wiped the floor with my side Preston over the weekend, and generally speaking, it's quite strange actually to speak about Watford in terms of there being a little bit of stability at the club right now, but I feel like they've got that with Ismael. And long may it continue. Interested to see what steps they take, if any, in the January window as well. In 8th place, we've got my side Preston, currently projected to finish the season with 67 points. I just can't see that being the case. Up until this point, we have averaged a really respectable and decent 1.45 points per game, but it's been a real season of two halves almost in this first half of the season. The first couple months of the season, Preston were averaging the form of an automatic promotion side. The last 2 months of the season, we've been playing like relegation candidates, having only won 3 of our last 15 league matches. The slide we're on right now, if this continues for much longer, I can't see us being anywhere near the playoffs come the end of this season, but it's because of a great start to the campaign and the inconsistency of a lot of the sides around us that we currently still find ourselves in this position. It feels week by week that more and more of the fan base are losing patience with Ryan Lowe. The inconsistent football, the amount of goals we're conceding right now. Having said all that, I don't feel as if the Preston board are going to rush into any decisions, but these next few games over the festive period are absolutely crucial for us. In 7th place, we've then got Sunderland. They're currently averaging 1.5 points per game, projected to finish the season with 69 points, which was exactly the tally they finished the last campaign with. And last time around, that was good enough to secure a spot in the top 6. This season, I don't think that's going to be the case. It certainly wouldn't be if everyone was to match their points per game in the second half of the season. Now, Sunderland have made a bold decision by letting Mowbray go, which I think a lot of Sunderland fans at the time thought was the right decision, but then to go ahead and bring in Mick Beale, which does feel like a massive gamble for them at this stage. Now, there was a period during his spell at QPR, a couple of months, where he had them playing some excellent football. They were right up there at the top of the championship, but the ending to his spell at QPR and his tenure at Rangers makes this for a little bit of an uncomfortable one, really. I'm fascinated to see how it plays out over these next couple of months and whether Sunderland manage to push the needle in their favour for upping their points per game or it falls off from this stage. But Sunderland fans, I'd be interested to get your take on this one down below. In 6th place, and this really speaks to the brilliant work that Liam Rosenior has done in at Hull. We've got Hull City currently averaging 1.64 points per game, projected to finish the campaign with 75 points. Now, to put into context of what a massive achievement that would be, that 75 points would be how many points Middlesbrough finished last season on, and that was good enough to finish 4th in the championship. So we have got quite a bit of competition now in and around the top 6, and for any of those sides below Hull looking to leapfrog them into a spot in the top 6, it may take more than 75 points to guarantee a place in the playoffs, which is quite a high threshold. Also in 5th, another excellent manager doing a great job at the moment. We've got West Brom and Carlos Corberán, also averaging 1.64 points per game, projected to finish the campaign with 75 points. Now, Corberán has been pretty consistent throughout his entire tenure with the Baggies. Had it not been for a slow start last season under the previous regime, Corberán would have got West Brom into the playoffs. I think that's a pretty popular consensus. He's going about his business really well so far, despite having an arm tied behind his back in the summer with the ownership model. 75 points would be a really good season for West Brom. But we really start to get into the massive point tallies when we get into the top 4, and it's almost like the Championship has sub-leagues within the Championship itself. You've got those sides in the bottom quartet fighting it out for relegation, those solid mid-table sides, the teams fighting it out for the playoffs, and then we've got really the top 4 who have been almost in a class of their own this season. Southampton currently projected to finish the season with 88 points, which in some seasons would be good enough for a place in the top 2. They're on the longest unbeaten run in the Championship right now, but I don't think anyone's kidded on that 88 points won't get you a place in the top 2 this season. And it's a very similar story with Leeds United as well, also averaging 1.91 points per game, projected to finish the campaign with 88 points. And Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we got into a scenario where Leeds finish this season, or Southampton, with more than 90 points and they don't go up this season, which would be absolutely crazy, but I think it's very realistic that that could happen because of the unrelenting form of the top two. Now, this was something that everyone was really fascinated by and thinking that a bubble may finally burst when it was happening over the first month, second month, but we're now at Christmas time and Ipswich are averaging 2.36 points per game and are currently projected to smash the championship points tally, finish the campaign with 108 points, and that won't even see them win the league. There will be moments of chaos this season for Ipswich. Maybe there'll be a spell where they get some bad injuries and there will be a tail off, but they've got themselves into such an unbelievable position right now where they can afford to have that slip at some stage of the season. But then to come out on top, it is Leicester City, as of recording, averaging 2.47 points per game and projected to finish the season with 114 points. Now, like I said before, I am recording this video before the Monday night match between Leicester and Birmingham, so these numbers will have shifted ever so slightly after that game, but as of recording, it's absolutely bonkers what Leicester have been doing. Now, we have seen it in previous years when sides have got themselves over the line, they've been promoted. It's only natural that they will take their foot off the gas. And while Leicester do have this unbelievable quality which is woven all throughout their side, I wouldn't put it past them to ease up a little bit in the second half of the season if they continue to be in this unbelievable position. But 114 points would be an absolute joke, wouldn't it? But guys, there we have it for this video. Thank you very much for tuning in. Bit of a data-driven one today, but it sort of paints the picture of how many points you'll need to pick up this season to finish in a certain position of the table. As always, guys, if you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular championship content. Other than that, though, I'll see you all in the next one.